Hello, my name is Michael Bradburn, and it is September 10th, 2021, which would have been my mom's 68th birthday. However, she died almost 2 months ago now after a very short 5-month battle with lung cancer. I was incredibly close with my mother, and almost 1 month to the day after she passed, I had a manic episode and wound up calling a suicide helpline. It's the second time in my life I've called one of those helplines, and I gotta say, it's not a fun experience. A lot of those folks you talk to are volunteers as well, and for some reason that makes me feel even more guilty. If you're going to hear about my absolute rock bottom, you should at least be getting paid for it probably. But, you're here, and I'm certainly not going to pay you. After talking on the phone with them for about 40 minutes, they suggested I admit myself to the hospital, which I was kind of hesitant about. I'd just seen the way some doctors treated my mom's cancer, and really, being around hospitals, even without COVID, is not an especially welcoming thought to me. Eventually, I did get talked into going to the hospital, though. I got to the hospital at about 11:30 at night and went through triage. It was at about that time I reached out to my bosses and let them know what I was going through, and they were incredibly supportive, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I sat in the emergency waiting room for about 45 minutes, crying on and off the entire time. At one point, the suicide helpline people actually called me back as well to make sure I made it safely to the hospital, which I think is important to note to some people who maybe have trepidation about calling one of those helplines. They really do care about you. After that, I saw a series of doctors and psychiatrists, including an orderly learning on the fly, which was weirdly nice to see a fresh-faced doctor like that, to see her deeply empathize with what I was going through, to see her not fully sure how to deal with what I was going through from a medical standpoint. It was humanizing to me and a memory I will cherish forever. They all asked the same things pretty much. What I was going through that brought me to the hospital that day, which I will now share with you. I won't get too detailed. I don't want to trigger anyone. But the day before I was hospitalized, I was moments away from attempting suicide. I had procured the materials I planned on using, prepped some of them, and even administered some. And out of nowhere, I got a phone call from someone who cares about me. To be clear, I did not let anyone know I was planning on doing this. It all kind of happened on a whim, which was weird. I didn't write a note. I didn't prepare any of the other ways I always thought I would when I previously had suicidal ideations. I just got a phone call out of the blue, and if I didn't get that phone call, I don't know if I would be here today. So why am I telling you this? Why am I making a video series about this? First, selfishly, I'm doing this for myself. I want to start documenting my journey with depression and grief, and if I can reflect on this later, it might help me discover the relationship between those two things, for me personally. Second, and more importantly, if I help even one person in this process, I think that would be a huge victory. This isn't just about me and my grief. It should be about everyone battling depression and other mental health issues. So, to that end, I'm going to discuss what my coping strategies have been. Maybe those work for you as well, or maybe you have others to share in the comments, which I can try and discuss later, or perhaps discuss with experts. If this starts resonating with people, I might even bring on some of my friends who are experts in this field to discuss things from their perspective as well. The unspoken caveat here is that I am not an expert myself. This is only my very specific and myopic journey with my struggle in mental health. I'm currently pursuing other diagnoses, and as those happen, I'd like to discuss my experience with that as well. Not so you can go and self-diagnose yourself, but maybe so that you have the tools to begin that conversation with medical professionals yourself. Finally, the last reason is to hold myself accountable. Sure, I can talk about these coping strategies, but sometimes I allow them to slip away pretty easily. Things like nourishing myself or exercising or focusing on fulfillment become chores to me at times. And that's probably true for a lot of folks. But if I talk about it openly, then I feel like I'm more likely to continue to follow through. Then I expect to talk about it here openly without judging myself too harshly for it. I have to be kind to myself, even in those moments of weakness, even in those moments where I fail. Because, I gotta wake up tomorrow and try it again. And if I'm not being kind to myself, then I'm not going to do that. So, since nearly attempting suicide, what have I done? What steps have I taken? Well, I've had, pardon me. Well, I've had 1 2-hour meeting with the fine psychiatry team at St. Michael's Hospital, and it's very preliminary, but it also feels like an incredibly huge step in the right direction toward never getting to the point where I almost attempt suicide again. It was a very long discussion that covered my history of being abused, the trauma that may have caused, and my previous experiences with medication. For transparency, I am now currently on 50 milligrams of sertraline, which is otherwise known as Zoloft, which is the minimum effective dose. I'm on my 3rd week of that, and I think I'm starting to see positive effects towards regulating my mood. Other than that, I've started running a bit again. I'm not a huge runner. In fact, I hate running, and I think I always will. But I do like the runner's high afterwards, so I keep chasing that. I was unable to run for a little bit while my mom was ill and after she died, because I used to call her after every run, and I found that very triggering when I was unable to call her. Near the end of her life, she wasn't really able to hold conversation for very long. She was suffering from lung cancer, so she would get tired, and speaking to her was a pretty big chore. So someone I spoke to on the phone at least once a day became unreachable, and that was a huge change for me. I still think about it every single time I run, after my run, but it's not as debilitating as it was, and I know I'm doing myself a favor by getting out and exercising. I've also started a little mental health journal, which I essentially treat like a diary, where I then rate my mood out of 10 for the day. I've only made 1 entry so far, but I'm hoping that becomes a more regular thing, and I'm hoping I can talk about how that works in future episodes. I also have purchased the book Mind Over Mood, recommended to me by that 2-hour psychiatrist meeting. I'm under the impression it's like a self-help workbook that helps you with cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, not an expert, but I will hopefully talk about that in future episodes as well. I also discussed nourishing myself earlier in this video. I do believe I am working with an undiagnosed eating disorder, most likely. I've had body image problems since I can remember, and I've always had trouble eating in front of people. So I'm really trying to focus on putting good food into my body. And that means I've finally cut pop out of my diet. I absolutely love pop. So this has been really tough for me, and I've cheated once for a ginger ale. However, other than that, I've been pretty good. And I'm pretty happy about it. This is all in an attempt to cut as much refined sugar out of my diet as well. So eventually I'd like to cut out, those gummies as well, which I haven't had in a long time anyways. So I'm already in the process of getting rid of those from my diet. So hooray. This is not necessarily a specifically mental health thing, but it's just about getting better food into my body, not putting junk into my body. While I want to start a video series, some of these Michael's mental health journals, patent pending, name pending, whatever, won't be in the form of a video. Occasionally, I'll just do a journal post on my personal Medium account where I will also share all of these videos as well. But I'm hoping to make this a pretty regular thing to raise awareness about suicidal ideation and to hopefully remove the stigma about mental health issues. This is an illness, and the more we talk about it that way, the better we'll be as a society. If you are thinking about killing yourself, please call a suicide helpline. They've helped me twice now. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. If you're a Canadian resident like myself, you can also dial 833-456-4566. Thanks for watching, and be kind to yourself.